Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's Friday, the 22nd of September, 2023. My name is CareyHolzman. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I am a professional computer technician. I make these videos to share my 30 plus years of experience in the industry to show you the way we do things in business. Most of the videos you're watching are just home users and hobbyists, and a lot of the stuff they do on camera would get them fired at the jobs that I've worked at. Like, they wouldn't last there very long. Now, when you're a home user, you could do whatever you want. It's your equipment. You could spend as much money and set the thing on fire, whatever. But when you're being paid and you're held accountable and responsible and liable for the work that you do and the time it takes you to do it, there's a kind of a different job, you know? So you can imagine, as I watch most of these technical YouTube videos, I'm just yelling at the screen going, there's no way. What are you doing? You're giving people really dangerous advice. There's so much bad advice on YouTube and on the internet. Everything from, there are videos that'll show you how to increase your water pressure in your house, but not warn you that in doing so, you could burst all the pipes and cause hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. Okay. So sometimes the information is correct, but it's incomplete. People try to save a little money. They want to do it themselves. Well, if you want to learn how professionals do things, which is the right way, or you want to take your risks and chances with the entertainment of hobbyists, it's your choice to make. But I'm here to provide you that alternative so that you're not, because primarily most of the videos are hobbyists and enthusiasts. I don't think their intention is to cause harm. It's just through ignorance. They don't know any better. So once you get a job in the industry, you'll learn real quick, or you get out of the industry. You're booted out if you don't get with the program. So I'm here to share with you my experience. And if you see that as a value, you're welcome to stay. And if you don't see that as a value, there's plenty of other channels for you to watch if you're into the entertainment and you're not into the education. Now, in front of me, I have two computer cases from a company I have never worked with before, or a case company, and they're called Jonsbo. And these cases are so similar, it's hard for me to believe that they're justified as two different models. They're essentially the exact same case, but one's about 2 inches shorter than the other one. That's about the only difference, along with the fact that those 2 inches, well, those accommodate an ATX motherboard with the additional inches. The shorter one only accommodates a micro ATX board. So obviously, if you have the larger one can fit the smaller micro ATX board without a problem. But the smaller one cannot fit a full-size ATX board in it. You can't put 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. So this almost seems like it's unnecessary. This is limited. It's really not saving you much space or money. And its ability to upgrade and its ability to even cool are going to be reduced because of a smaller design. Not by much. And when I say not by much, I mean, it doesn't even seem worth to me to manufacture the smaller version. This version here will do everything this one will do. But this one cannot do everything this one will do. The price difference is insignificant. The size difference is insignificant. It doesn't make any sense to me why this company did this. Now, on top of these cases, and what makes them unique, they include an 8-inch monitor. And the 8-inch monitor can fit in right here in the front of these cases, both of them the same. This piece comes out. And if you want to, you can attach this monitor and it'll act as a secondary monitor. You can display whatever you want on it, from extending your desktop. We could load a program like Ada64 to put our CPU times. Everybody on the internet is fascinated with the temperatures. It's all people can think about when it comes to computers online. They have such a limited vision and such a limited education that all they think about is heat. It doesn't matter what it is. My CPU is running hot. My GPU is running hot. My hard drive doesn't work. Let me put it in the freezer. People are just dumb. I'm sorry to say this, but most of the people watching these YouTube videos, they're They're so fixated on something that doesn't actually matter in the real world that it's become almost like a sickness or an illness, in my opinion. There is nothing to do with heat that putting a hard drive in a freezer is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But let me explain to you the people that are most vocal on the internet, it seems, are the ones that have the limited education. And so what they do is they ritualize things. Now, our friends over at $300 Data Recovery have been doing professional data recovery services since 2007. And if you walk into their facility, as I've demonstrated with my, I brought the camera over there and we did an interview and got a tour of the facility. Nowhere is there a freezer. At no point does a professional data recovery specialist ever, under any circumstances, put a hard drive in a freezer, because all the mechanics inside of the drive, if you understood how a hard drive worked, you'd understand whether it's hot or cold. It plays no role in it. It plays no role in it. So, but here's what happens. Somebody goes, well, my hard drive didn't work and I put it in the freezer and then I was able to get the data off. So what do you say about that? I say, well, I waved chicken bones over my head and then the data came off the drive. So clearly the chicken bones are the reason why the data came off. You let that drive sit when it was in the freezer. You were leaving it alone. Likely the temperature had nothing to do with it. And you could have created condensation in the drive, which becomes rust on the platters and completely ruined your drive. So what was once a recoverable drive is no longer recoverable. So we have this level of ignorance that leads to ritualization and false conclusion because they don't understand how the technology works. It reminds me of a joke where a scientist had a frog. And he said to the frog, he smacked his hand down, he said, jump, and the frog jumped. So he cut one of the legs of the frog's off, one of the frog's legs off. This is for science. He says, jump, the frog jumps. Cuts the second leg of the frog off. He says, jump, and the frog jumps. He cuts the third leg off of the frog. He says, jump, and the frog jumps. He cuts the fourth and final leg off of the frog, and he says, jump, jump. And he writes in his pad, removing the four legs of the frog makes it deaf. Do you understand the difference between understanding how something works and ritualizing an action to a reaction, even when they're purely coincidental? And this goes on so much on the internet. The data just vanished off a hard drive. That doesn't happen except in theory. No one's ever proven that ever. Ever has that ever been proven. It's only theoretical. People, what's the best archival storage? So you can imagine as a professional, when I hear this just ignorant nonsense, year after year, and people are making videos and they're propagating this false information, it motivates me to come out here and talk to you folks who actually want to know how the stuff works and understand there's a reason why professional data recovery services never, ever put a hard drive in a freezer. A freezer is not a data recovery tool. And because it worked for you, had nothing to do with the freezer. It had to do with you moving the drive. It had to do with you leaving the drive alone for a period of time. And if you'd have done the same exact thing outside of the freezer, you would have got the same result, more than likely. If you understand the way a hard drive works, then you can scientifically explain to me why you think a freezer is suddenly going to make your driver. It's the dumbest thing, and it clearly shows people have no idea what's going on. They just go, I don't know what to tell you. But when I spin around 3 times clockwise and clap my hands, it rains. So obviously that makes it rain. Oh, and stickers make cars go faster, because have you ever seen a car win a professional automotive race that didn't have stickers on it? Obviously, stickers make the car go faster. Otherwise, you'd see a car in first place without any stickers on it, but you never do. This is called ritualization, and it's basically telling everybody you have no idea how the world works, and you're taking your limited knowledge and your imagination, and you're piecing two unrelated things together in an unjustifiable way based on action and reaction without an understanding of what's causing and how they're related. So I had to get that off my chest because it's driving me crazy. Over at $300 Data Recovery, they're a sponsor for September and October. If you ever need data recovery services and you don't want somebody goofing around with your data that's so precious to you and being so irresponsible is to advise you to put your hard drive in a freezer. That's somebody who doesn't respect you, and that's somebody you cannot hold accountable and sue, because $300 Data Recovery is a professional organization that's held liable for the actions that they do. They have to do everything by the book, what we call the right way. That ensures the data is recovered more likely than not, that it's done correctly, that it's done efficiently, and that it's done without any destruction to the drive, so that if they can't recover it, you can always send it to another data recovery service for somebody else to try. Putting a drive in a freezer is kind of a one-way road. If that worked for you, and it wouldn't be because it was in the freezer, but if that worked for you, congratulations. But if it didn't work for you, you might have just made your drive that was once recoverable totally unrecoverable. If that's a risk you want to take, I don't have a problem with it. And if people who doled out that advice gave such disclaimers, which they would if they were sued by everybody they screwed over, there would likely be less of that advice. But as long as you can tell anybody anything and anything will believe it, what anybody says, without any verification, they hear it from 5 or 6 people, it must be true, you know? I'm not interested in what 5 or 6 people, or I don't care what everybody has to say. I care what the facts are. You show me the facts, you show me the science, we're able to repeat it in a lab, and we can demonstrate it, and every single time the exact same cause and effect, and explain the physics and the engineering as to what's causing that. That's what I'm interested in. None of this ritual stuff. It's nonsense. It's hobbyist. That doesn't fly in the real world of business. Now, at least in IT. If you don't know what you're doing and you're a BSer, because that's what we'd call you, you'd likely be short-termed there. You'd be a short-timer. You wouldn't last very long. So I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to encourage you to be self-aware enough that before you accept what's being said on the internet, that you do your own research to verify it from a trusted source. Okay? That's not somebody on Reddit. That's not a YouTuber with 1 million subscribers. That YouTuber with 1 million subscribers is not necessarily a trusted source. You need to go to a particular source, like a hard drive manufacturer, and speak to them. Talk to one of their engineers. In the case of talking about hard drive data recovery, you need to go to an independent hard drive data recovery service and talk to them. Talking to some goofball on Reddit, you're out of your mind if you think what you're being told is 100% accurate and fully disclosed. Because sometimes they give you some of the information, like here's how you could turn up your water pressure, but then they leave out the information that, oh, and by the way, this could blow your pipes out. Oh, well, you did it to yourself. So you got no one to blame but yourself. One day, I hope we can start suing these content creators and holding them accountable for the damage that I'm not saying they're doing on purpose, but there are some consequences, negative consequences that people have suffered from following the advice of fools. And those fools are getting absolutely no repercussions, no consequences, no liabilities. And that needs to change, or people need to wise up and just stop believing everything you see online. I'm glad I got that off my chest. $300 data recovery. They're our friends. They'll be your best friend too if you ever need data recovery. If you make backups like you know you're supposed to, you'll never need $300 data recovery. But if you've got a friend or somebody that maybe you're a technician like me and one of your clients isn't backing up, they have a bad drive, you could save your client a lot of money, and you could do your community a great service by letting them know they don't have to spend the thousands of dollars that the big data recovery companies will charge you. $300 data recovery stands alone as the cheapest data recovery service, as far as I know, certainly within the United States. They're also one of the fastest. They've recovered over 26,000 drives successfully since 2007 when they opened their doors, and they named their business $300 Data Recovery 2007. And do you know what the name of that company is today in 2023? $300 Data Recovery. How crazy is that? Clearly, he's not in it for the money. He's in it to help the community and keep you from getting ripped off, to do a good job and get your precious data back. Well, he can't guarantee you can always get data back. He's going to do his best as though it were his own. He's going to stay in communication with you the whole time, and you have full control over what you want him to do as far as if you want him to stop, if you want him to continue based on what his early results are, so that you're not just going to be surprised with a bill. You're going to know before he begins the work exactly what the bill is going to be, and you'll agree to it or not. So there's no surprises. It happens very quickly, and all you have to do is read any of the thousands of reviews on Yelp. $300 Data Recovery is the highest rated data recovery company on the planet. Do your own research, look it up, call around to other data recovery services and get some prices and read some reviews. Hope you never need them. But if you do, I hope you never pay more than what $300 data recovery charges, because otherwise you paid too much. Our friend Mitch Morrison is in Vietnam. Some of you may be aware of that. He's on vacation, and he sent us an update video that he'd like to share with you all. Are you ready? All right, take it away, Mitch.
Hello, Uncle Carey and everybody in chat. This is your Uncle Mitch coming to you from Hanoi, Vietnam. This is a world-famous train street where in about 10 minutes a train's going to come right through us, or right through here, very close. I shot a video of it the other day. I liked it so much I came back, so I'll cut to it right now and you'll see. Bye. So what did you think of that train, chat and Carey? I want to tell you, that was as close as I ever want to get to a moving train, but I really liked it. So yeah, I'll stay another couple of days here in Hanoi, and then I'll take an airplane, 90-minute flight down to central part of Vietnam, a town called Da Nang, and looking forward to that. So we'll shout at you later. Bye.
Thank you, Mitch. Hey, that was awesome. I love to travel vicariously through Mitch. I've never heard of Train Street. I didn't know that was like a thing. You can certainly type Train Street here on YouTube to see a lot of other folks' videos who have filmed it. It's like this open air marketplace where they've got to move all the merchandise out of the way when the train comes. That's a big train. I didn't even know that was a thing. So thank you for sharing the video with us, Uncle Mitch. And please send us more. We need more. Now, speaking of Mitch, the motherboard that I'm going to use in today's build is a micro ATX. So guess which one of these two cases I'm going to use? I'm going to use the little one. On the back, this micro ATX case only has 4 PCI Express slot ports. The full-size ATX case has 7. If you ever want to know quickly if a case is a micro ATX case or a full ATX case, just count the number of PCI Express slots that's in the back of the case. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're looking at pictures online, and all you have to do is just, if it's got 7, you're an ATX case. If it's got 4 or 5, it's going to be a micro ATX case. It's that easy to tell without having to actually picture the dimensions. And the motherboard we've got is a B560M. It's an Aorus Pro AX that Mitch and I built. The link for this video is in the video description. And this was filmed about a year ago, and it's been sitting ever since we prepped the motherboard. If I bring up my window capture, This right here is the video where we are prepping this board with an 11900K processor, a Samsung 970 Evo 2 terabyte NVMe drive, the Mugen 5 Revision C, and T-Force memory. I think that's 2 sticks of 16, if I'm not mistaken. And we put Windows 10 on it, I think. So this is all prepped and ready to go. It was just waiting, for somebody to order it or for a need to come up. And it just never happened. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to march forward and make a decision, make an executive decision, and put it in a case. And when I saw these cases, they're a little pricey, but they're so unique, they're so different. And I couldn't make up my mind if I wanted the smaller one or the bigger one, because in the pictures, they look exactly identical. I can't see the difference other than, again, counting the PCI slots. So I went ahead and ordered both. And so now you can see what they look like side by side. If we go over to the Amazon page well, first of all, let's go to the manufacturer's page. So the manufacturer's page, and again, links for everything in the video notes. Right here, the manufacturer makes coolers, and of course they make different cases besides this one. And there's our case there. They make it in black and in white, in mesh and not in mesh. And you can get it with the screen and without the screen. So a couple different variations. And you can read all about their coolers, their fans, and other accessories they manufacture here on their website. I ordered these from Amazon. So this is the Jonsbo D31. So the D31, that's a micro ATX case, sells for $145 with the screen included. They also have it available in white. And this is the mesh version. You see it's all mesh in the front. They have one that's not mesh. It's just flat metal. Interesting that they offer that. Now, the larger version is the D41. Bigger number, bigger case. And just about $14, $13 more. So again, not a big price difference. And if it were me, I would just get the bigger one. Everything about the computers is the same. It's basic. You'll get the same front panel here. All that's the same between them. The same glass panel. Well, obviously a shorter glass panel. Also comes in white, also with mesh or without mesh. Remember that screen right there, that's an 8-inch color LCD screen. That's probably worth $60 or $70, just that screen. So it's a pretty good deal. And if we look through some of the photos here, they demonstrate how big of a video card you can put in there. That one shows, looks like 400 millimeters. All the details are all in here. It's got room for a top 360 all-in-one cooler. It's showing lots of different ways you can configure this. And we'll scroll through some more of the pictures. There it is empty. There it is all hooked up with a graphics card. And this looks like the micro ATX. Am I on the micro ATX one? Because I'm counting 1, 2. It's so hard to tell if I'm looking at the micro ATX or the full ATX. It's hard to count the slots here. That might be a 3-slot card. 3, 4, 5. They might have even confused themselves. Let's take a look. Do they have a similar photo here? Well, it's nice they got the two side by side. I guess I didn't realize that. The size difference looks more significant in their photo than it does to me, like looking at them in person. What's their video look like? Now, I purchased these computers with your contribution money and the money earned by YouTube. I take all that money, I invest it right back in the channel so I can keep making content like this for you. When the system is built, it will be available for sale at cost. Actually, I'll take that back. It'll be cheaper than cost. Because this is an 11900. So because the CPU is 2 generations old, I will discount it accordingly. Oh, the power supply, it mounts at the front of the case and you can move it up or down to make clearance for an all-in-one cooler. I see. Okay. See, I just kind of went off some early looks and I thought, wow, that's really cool. It's kind of reminiscent of the Xenos G3 that we did all those years ago that I still have, that stood unique as the only computer I've ever seen that came with a built-in monitor. This is really cool that you can take this monitor out and it has little metal pegs that you can rest it against. So you can have the monitor external if you want to. How cool is that? All right, let's get back over to camera one. And let me say hello to everybody in the chat room. I've been ignoring you. How rude of me. So rude. I need my glasses for this. Let's see what's going on in the chat room, the wild, wild west. Oh, you know what? I probably have to bring the chat room up first, don't I? All right. All right. Once Carey learns how to use a touchscreen, we'll all be moving right along. Ian Gooch with a 10-pound contribution said, Carey, here's a few pounds for your coffers. Right on. Ian, thank you. Cheers, mate. That's what I need to say, right? Fish and chips and all that, isn't it? Oh, we tease because we love. Is that all I see? I thought I saw a couple others. Let me just double check something here. We got about 300 people watching. Oh, yeah, I see a lot of stuff I missed. Zach Bischoff has now been a member for 9 months. He says, hey there, Carey, Cam Girl, and all in chat. I cannot tune in for this one. I'm working tonight, but I'll watch the replay later. Well, right on. Thank you, Zach, for continuing your membership. And yeah, the great thing about these videos is once they're done live, they're available for you to watch at your convenience anytime, 24/7. Captain Fandom Nerd renews. Sorry, he's been a member now for 1 month. Right on. Thank you, Captain Fandom Nerd, for supporting the channel so I can continue buying stuff like this. Jonsbo, I don't know if we reached out and asked him. If so, we didn't get an answer, so we just bought them. Peter VZ contributes €1. Thank you, Peter. Of course, our good friend Mark Gaines out there in Northern Ireland, he's contributed £10. He says, also check your PayPal. And our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock, joins us from Scotland. Sent a very generous Amazon gift card before the show started. And a $35.23 PayPal contribution was sent by Mark Gaines, the very same Mark Gaines that just contributed £10 on Super Chat. Sláinte Mark, thank you so much. I see an email from Tony Martin. Thank you, Tony. I'll let you know when they arrive. Should we get some work done? Motherboard's prepped. I went ahead and did all the Windows updates on it the other night. And we're going to use the smaller of the two cases. So I'm going to clear this case out of the way. Let me move the monitor individually because I don't want to drop it and break it. It's just my luck. So I'm just going to bring this into the other room so we have some room on the bench to actually get some work done. All we really have to do is to put a power supply in here, install the motherboard, hook up the cabling, and of course I'm going to hook up that secondary monitor installed in the front of the case because I just think that's really cool. So this should be a pretty straightforward video when we break it down like this into separating the motherboard prep from the case. You know, getting the motherboard installed in the case and all finalized. It breaks it into more logical video segments. You know, I failed to tag this. I always put an index card on the raw motherboards that I've got that are prepped because I can't see what they are once the heatsink goes on top. So the only way I can do that is I have to clear the bench, bring out a power supply, hook it all up with a power switch, and then run CPU-Z. Also checked if there's a new BIOS update. I think there was a new BIOS update that I applied. Yes, the RAM is 32 gigs total. It is DDR4, obviously. And it is Windows 10 Pro. It says here that I activated it. So the activation is courtesy of our friends over at VIP CDK Deals. They sell legal, legitimate license keys at a fraction of the cost. 90% cheaper than Microsoft sells them. How's it possible? It's possible because they're in another country, the exchange rates, and the fact that they're buying bulk licenses, not enterprise licenses. These are often retail licenses. They're digital licenses. And Windows 10 Pro, for example, is like $16.90. Now, the price can fluctuate due to the exchange rate changing whenever randomness there is in the exchange rate. I always pay with PayPal. I don't use my credit cards because my credit cards will typically go, whoa, 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 you're making a purchase in Hong Kong? This is suspicious. Some of the viewers think their credit card company thinks the company is suspicious, and that's why they're stopping the transaction and they need you to call them. That's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because you're not normally making purchases in Hong Kong, and probably most of you never have before. So for your credit card company to suddenly see this charge in Hong Kong that has no precedent of any past history with you, they flag it. Now, PayPal, they're used to doing international transactions. It's no big deal for them. So I always use PayPal. The transaction goes through smoothly. Within under a minute, I get my product code. And then I enter the product code in Windows 10 Pro or even Windows 11 Pro. You know, you don't have to buy a Windows 11 Pro license key. Those cost more. Windows 10 Pro license keys work to activate Windows 11 Pro. You don't have to install Windows 10 first. You just put the Windows 10 Pro license key in as if it were a Windows 11 Pro license key, because it is, and it'll activate. Now, once you activate, your Windows activation stays tied to your motherboard indefinitely. You cannot change it. If you change a lot of hardware on your motherboard, it may be requiring you to purchase a new license. If you ever have to wipe your operating system and reinstall it again, don't enter your product key. Do it the way I show you. I always install Windows 10 and Windows 11 and Windows 7 and Windows XP. I always install them the same. I always choose I don't have a product key. Because I'm not providing it a product key, it doesn't know what version of Windows my product key is for. But I know it's going to be for the Pro, whether it's Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Pro. So make sure you select that correctly, because if your product key is for Windows 10 Home and you install Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Pro, your product key for Windows 10 Home will be invalid on Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Pro. Once you have entered your product key and it's activated, it stays activated for the life of the motherboard. That means you can change your hard drive, you can change pretty much anything but the motherboard, and it's probably going to be fine. So if you were to do a reinstall, you just say, I don't have a product key. You choose, the Home or Pro version that you had installed prior that was activated. You go through that, you hit Windows Update. Windows Update recognizes your motherboard, and it reassigns the product key right back into your registry on your behalf and reactivates. You don't have to do anything. It's all automatic. You do not need a Microsoft account for this to work. If you reuse that product key and you are successfully able to activate that same product key onto another computer, you will effectively deactivate it from this board. And what that means is, well, this board may continue to work activated. The minute you have to reinstall, it says you need to provide it. It won't automatically activate. Now it's going to automatically activate the second. That's why usually it only allows you to install one time and activate it one time. If you think you're getting away with anything by trying to activate the same code a second time on another computer and it works, you really just did it to yourself, because now you've effectively deactivated it on the first board, and you may not know that until you have to do a reinstall. All right, so you can't beat the deal. They have great customer service. A lot of places that sell cheap Windows product keys are selling stolen keys or questionably sourced keys, and they offer no customer service and no guarantees. As far as I know, I am the only content creator on YouTube that is telling you that if you order from VIP CDK Deals a Microsoft Windows or a Microsoft Office product key, and that product key gives you issues, then you reach out to their support, and their support at VIP CDK Deals will help you within 30 days of your purchase, okay? Be reasonable. Just like anything else you'd buy. You go to Best Buy, you want to return something after 45 days, good luck. They might, but they might not. And the same goes with VIP CDK Deals. They still might help you after 30 days, or they might not. But within those 30 days, I guarantee they're going to help you, and they're going to resolve it, and they're going to do it relatively quickly, at most a couple of days if you're reaching out on a weekend and let's say they're not open on the weekend or staffed. If you had a bad experience, if you've made them aware of it and they have not made it right, then you come to me with your story. You email me personally and I will make it right. You know how many times I've had to do this the last 2 years? I've gotten involved, I think 5 times, and 2 or 3 of the times the person ordered the wrong product key and wanted to return it. Product keys are generally not returnable because they have no way to really know if you just used it. And now, so many people out on the internet are scammers. Everybody thinks the other person's trying to scam the other person. So VIP CDK Deals is trying to protect themselves from scammers. And you guys, the purchasers, you're trying to protect yourself from buying from some scammer selling fake CD keys, product keys. So this is the world we live in now. This company stands behind their product and I stand behind this company. You find me another YouTube content creator that promotes product keys, that puts their own personal guarantee on it. Even if necessary, I will refund your money personally. That's how confident I am. And we have sold literally thousands of product keys. If I told you how many, you probably wouldn't believe me. So when I tell you we've had less than a half a dozen issues, that rakes out to maybe 1% of 1%. And all of the issues were resolved one way or the other, whether the person got their money back or the person had the issue that they had, it was resolved satisfactory one way or the other. Nobody's ever been burned where, oh, well, I got your money now, so you're not getting it. It's my money now. It's not yours anymore. I don't play that game. None of my vendors play that game, or they won't work with me ever again. So anytime I'm here promoting a service like $300 data recovery, VIP CDK Deals, Acronis, RoboForm, any of these companies, I guarantee you that there is peace of mind that if things don't work out within those first 30 days, the opportunity to get a refund, to get your money back is out on the table. These companies aren't going to argue and fight with you over such an inexpensive product, right? It's just easier and faster to give you your money back than the time wasted in arguing. So again, within 30 days. Once you go beyond 30 days, it's a different story. And many of these products like RoboForm and Acronis have free trial periods where you don't even have to give a credit card any credit card information. You can just download the product and evaluate the full work. Mostly, I think Acronis mostly is fully working for 30, I want to say it's 15 or 30 days. RoboForm's the same way. In fact, RoboForm has a free version if you only need to store a couple of passwords. And you never have to pay for it as long as you don't want the synchronization across all your multiple devices. RoboForm will synchronize from your desktop to your smartphone to your laptop, and you only pay for the one license. You can have RoboForm installed on 100 different items with that one license for one RoboForm account, because the license is for each account, meaning the end user, not the accounts that you're storing, but you, the master account. So I'm very proud of my sponsors. They have moral and ethical standards that meet or go beyond my own. And if they don't, I don't offer their product. Or if suddenly they shift and they stop becoming customer focused, then we stop promoting them here. I treat you guys no differently than I treat my customers. You see, the hobbyists and the enthusiasts who make videos because they enjoy making videos, they're not going to stand behind any of their sponsors. Why would they? They're not taking accountability or responsibility for their videos. Why would they take accountability or responsibility for their sponsors? That's not their problem. That's typically the attitude. That's between you and them, they often say. That has nothing to do with me, even though they promoted it. It's all too common here on YouTube. What I'm doing, I don't see anybody else doing. I hope if you need a Windows or an Office license key, that you will make that purchase from VIP CDK Deals. Since they're supporting us here so we can continue to make videos, you support them, they support us. You save a ton of money. You get good customer service if it's even needed. Fast response after your purchase. You use the code CAREY. Coupon code is CAREY, C-A-R-E-Y, to get 30% off their already low prices. And I got news for you. When I buy licenses, whether it's Office or whether it's Windows, do you think I call VIP CDK Deals and ask them for free licenses? No, because I'd have no recourse if something went wrong because it was free. So I pay for my licenses, and do you know what I pay? The same price you do. I click on my own link in my video. I add the product to my cart. I put in the word CAREY. I get my 30% off. I pay with my PayPal. And in under a minute, I have my product code. It's that easy. And I can't remember the last time a product code had an issue. But the last time I did have an issue, I went on their online chat and they instantly sent me a new product key. It resolved it immediately, and the whole thing was all said and done in minutes. No arguing, no high blood pressure, no frustration. Just money savings and quality goods. Don't believe me? Try it. See for yourself. John Williams says, Carey, I have bought dozens of product keys using your link on VIP CDK Deals without a single problem. That's what I'm talking about. So if you don't believe me, ask people in the chat room what their experience was. Douglas Burchell says, this community here is the reason why I became a member. I love the content and I love the respect we show each other. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. We love having you here. We're glad you've become a part of the community. Always a joy to see you in the chat room. Shamim Kajveris joining us from Sweden. Says hello. Where's Oystein from Norway? We'll give a shout out to our friend Alan Lindas, who's on vacation. He sent a pretty generous Amazon gift card. He said, here's to cover my weeks I'll be away on vacation. So if he's watching out there, we just want to say, hi, Alan, we're thinking of you. Of course, our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock, we always give him a shout out. And who else do we have in here saying hello? David says he just used the code to get a Windows 11 Pro key. So I don't know why. David, listen, you just wasted your money on a Windows 11 Pro key. I just got done telling you, you could have bought a Windows 10 Pro key for less money and used it as a Windows 11 Pro key. It's your money, and I don't know why you just did that. None of you should, in my opinion, be buying Windows 11 Pro keys. If you want to, I mean, they sell them at VIP CDK Deals, but you'll notice they sell for more money. A Windows 10 Pro key is less money, and it will activate Windows 11 Pro. So keep that in mind. If you want to spend more, I won't get in your way. But I don't buy Windows 11 Pro keys. I don't buy them. I only buy Windows 10 Pro keys. And if I'm activating Windows 11 Pro or Windows 10 Pro, I put the key in the same. Nick Powerman said he's purchased 20 product keys from VIP CDK Deals. He's never had a problem. Well, let's do the opposite. Has anybody ever had a problem? Instead of the people saying they haven't had a problem, because obviously there's a lot of you, have any of you ever had a problem with VIP CDK Deals? And if so, was it resolved? Because I would hope that if any of you answer that question that yes, you had a problem and no, it wasn't resolved, that you would have reached out to me, because clearly I would have resolved it one way or the other, whether that's getting you your product key or getting you a refund. Rob Warren says, will they still sell Windows 10 product keys after October 2024 when support ends? Support ends on October of 2025. We're more than 2 years away. Windows or Microsoft stopped selling Windows 10 product keys a few months ago. They're no longer offered for sale officially. So I don't have a crystal ball. I cannot see the future. I cannot tell you when the supply of Windows 10 product keys will run dry. No idea. But Microsoft stopped officially selling Windows 10 product keys, I think back in March, and they only sell Windows 11 ones now. But that's Microsoft. That's the official. VIP CDK deal still sells them. But you have until October 14th of 2025. This is 2023. A year from now, when I'm standing behind this bench talking to you, it'll be 2024. A year after that, it'll be 2025. And Windows will still be supported until the 14th of October, 2025. It's over 2 years from now. Over 2 years from now. What else do you plan 2 years ahead? Why are you worried about what's going to happen 2 years from now? Is there anything else in your life that you are concerned about 2 years from now? Do you pay your property taxes 2 years ahead of time? You pay your car insurance 2 years ahead of time? You go to the grocery store and buy groceries that you're going to be eating 2 years from now? Be in the moment. Stay with us in the present. Brian wants to know if I have a source for reasonably priced Adobe product keys. I don't promote Adobe products. Adobe is a very expensive company, and they've gone to subscription only, as far as I know. So you really, anytime you're going to subscription only, it's a more restrictive way of selling the keys. And I'm a fan of subscriptions, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to Adobe products, I think they're grossly overpriced. So they're quality products. They do a great job. Don't get me wrong. There's not an Adobe product I don't like, but I do feel that they are massively overpriced. Nick Poverman said, I'm worried about my 60th birthday in 2 years. Are you worried you're not going to have it? Because you should look forward, because the alternative to not having it means that you died. All right. Do I still recommend Malwarebytes? Chris Smith wants to know. Yes, I do. I've been trying to work with Malwarebytes, and the best I could do was to get a commission junction link. Should be in the video notes below today's video. If it's not there, I'll have to remind myself to put it in there. So it's a very generic discount. Unfortunately, it's nothing customized for the audience. They have been a horrible company to try and work with. They don't answer emails, or they say, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns in the next week. And then they got an excuse. And they say, I'll make up for it. I'll call you, we'll do a conference call or whatever. And then they don't do it. And then eventually they just stop responding. So it's all very courteous, but they ghost me over and over and over again. I wouldn't tolerate that if I didn't like the product so much. So I just did the basic commission junction thing and signed up over there so you guys can at least get a discount. It is a good product. However, I can tell you might find a better price at Newegg. They often have it on sale where you can have one license of Malwarebytes that can be activated on 3 or 5 computers, depending on which license you buy. But what you need to understand, it's one license code that can be activated either 3 times or 5 times, depending on which one. The same code. And it's a 1-year license that starts the day you install it on the first computer. So let's say you have 3 computers and you buy a 3 license code, it's a 3 computer license. You get this one product key. Okay, let's just say you order it, you get it from Newegg, they have it on sale. It's electronic delivery, they don't mail you anything. And you install that product code and activate it on your computer, your subscription just started. That means all 3 product keys will expire on the same day, which is exactly 1 year from the date the first one was activated. So to get the most out of it, it doesn't really make sense to buy a 3 PC license code, install one of those on one PC and then not use the other two for months, because as those months tick away, that's less time remaining on those other activations. So if 3 months from now you go to activate it on a second computer, there's 9 months left on both. And then 3 months after that, you go and install it on a third computer. Now there's 6 months left until all 3 computers will expire the subscription on the same day. That's how multiple user licenses generally work with subscriptions. The subscription starts the day the license code is activated on the first PC. So if you're thinking, I'll get a 5 PC license and then when I need it in the future, I'll use it. If you're at month 11 and you finally use it, you only have 1 month left, even though you just activated it. Because it starts from the day you activated the first one. So it's not always a money savings, is what I'm trying to warn you about. If that's what your logic is, it doesn't generally work out that way. So if you have 3 PCs you need to use it on, make sure you install and activate it as soon as possible. And as soon as you install it on the first one, get it installed on the others ASAP to get the most out of your money. That's pretty universal across the board for multiple licenses on subscriptions. That's how they work. Paul Garrett said he had a problem with VIP CDK deals, but they had them up and running in less than an hour. This is what I'm talking about. It's like if you buy your product key from some shady seller on eBay or Etsy, eBay will shut the account down immediately after the purchase. Why they allow that purchase to be listed or that item to be listed makes no sense to me. But if you try to buy a Windows or Office product key or any software product key on eBay, they'll let the purchase go through and then they'll immediately cancel the seller account. That's why you won't see any sellers selling software on eBay that have any big amount of feedback, because their accounts keep getting closed. This is the dumbest thing. Once they close the account, you can't email the seller if you have a problem, because they only have the email contact information from eBay. The email's internal messaging. And when the account's closed, if you have a problem, you have no way to reach out to the seller. They've effectively cut you out. So if you want to gamble like that, have fun. In real life, in real business, you'd be fired. You pulled something like that with company money, it wouldn't last very long. But just want to give you all the information and you make your own informed decision and live with your consequences, whether they're positive or negative. Dorado Systems, the Jonsbo D41 case there in Bucharest is 586.81 RON. That means, or equates to $121.53. Interesting. Thomas MacT said, I'm late. Sorry, Carey. And chat, I just turned 70 on the 14th. He says, hello, Mortmont, if you're there. Happy 70th birthday, Thomas. Right on. Septuagenarian. How cool is that? Are we having a competition? Joseph Hawkins says he's 74. But did you just have a birthday? I just turned 40 15 years ago. Nick Poverman said his 58th birthday was on Wednesday. Happy birthday to Nick Poverman. He says, my wife is taking me out for a fancy lobster dinner in a few minutes. I'm just waiting for her to come home. Hey, enjoy your dinner. Right on. Good for you. Now, here in Phoenix, I wouldn't want to go to a restaurant on a Friday night. It's loud and busy. But hopefully it's not that way where you are. And you enjoy the evening without having to wait in long lines and shout over the din of the conversations in the restaurant to have a conversation. That's how it is here in Phoenix on Friday and Saturday nights. So I try to avoid dining out anywhere nice on Friday and Saturday nights. Long Dog says, Carey, when you get this build finished, how deep are you going to explore using the display? It's just a monitor. It doesn't work any other differently than any other monitor. I don't understand your question. You turn it on and you can extend your desktop to it. You could play a little media file in there. You could open one of your windows in there for some application, including AIDA64. It's all it is a monitor. It's just a small 8-inch monitor. There's nothing special about it. There's basically whatever software you want to put on it that you could put on any monitor, you'd put on this monitor. I think you might be overthinking this a little bit. Utomo said he turned 53 on the 14th. Right on. Well, happy birthday to Utomo. Belated birthday. Gary Tatum said, I just turned 59, going on 80. You and me both. John Struther says, hello. Hey, welcome in, John. Lou Greenia says it's his 59th birthday coming up in November. Right on. Box Fabio says, what is the most underrated computer accessory you think people should use more? Underrated computer accessory people should use more. A backup drive. Dorado Systems is going to be my birthday gift on October 29th when I celebrate my 38th birthday. Hopefully doing a build in the case. He says, happy birthdays to everyone, Carey, Mitch, and Mara included. Well, Carey, Mitch, and Mara don't have any birthdays. They're in recent past, but appreciate the thought. Lawn Dog said, regarding the monitor, that's what I needed to know how to use it. You use it like any other monitor. I don't know. It's a monitor. Having the second display with where I put my computer could be very handy. Thanks for explaining how it works. It's literally a second display. Yeah, it's no more complicated than that. Chris's Retro Tech channel contributes $5 in Super Chat. Says, I'm getting ready to help my friend build a new PC for photo editing. Enjoy it. Enjoy your build. I always recommend people take their time. Enjoy the build. Don't try and rush it. Check my PayPal, check my email. Is that what it says? Paul O'Brien wants me to check my email. Okay, Paul. Oh, somebody wants to buy my house. Paul O'Brien sends a $10 Amazon gift card. He also sends a message. This is for Douglas Burchell in honor of his son who died a hero, saving somebody else 3 years ago yesterday. He will always be a Steining Shard to guide Douglas through the rest of his life. Stay strong, Douglas Burchell. What an amazing community we have here. It's such a kind gesture. Yeah, our thoughts are certainly with you there. And Douglas is an amazing guy. Conversations I've had with him have always been, I'd say pleasant, but it's better than pleasant. Very enjoyable. And I can't come up with a bad thing to say about him. No matter how hard I might try, I got nothing. He's that good of a guy. All right. Well, thanks again, Paul O'Brien. All right. So I guess we can build in the case now, huh? So the monitor's in this box, and the monitor is optional. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. That's why this piece is there. Okay, so you can put that back if you don't want to use the monitor. And the monitor has it has two little like screws or standoffs that go in the back if you want to keep the monitor on your desk away from the desktop, away from the tower. That's an option too, but it's not wireless. You're going to have to run wires. So bear that in mind. It's not as though we can pop the screen out and go set it wirelessly on the desk. We have to run wires, power and video signal to this display, and it'll pull the display from USB. It's got a Type-C video input. You can control the screen brightness, and you can turn off the screen backlight. It's pretty limited in its function, and it's really just there to be designed as a small, I think it's an 8-inch display. Yeah, it's an 8-inch display, so obviously you wouldn't want to read a book on it, but you can use it as a aesthetic piece, or you can use it for like monitoring temperatures, you know, having some big gauges put up there. They recommend ADA 64, piece of software that they have nothing to do with, that you could buy on your own, acquire on your own. Whenever you see these people showing pictures of computers that have like all these fancy little gauges running, because, you know, the internet has this really unhealthy sickness with wanting to monitor the temperatures of their computer, which is just really the dumbest, most unjustifiable thing I've ever seen. It does look cool, and so maybe people just want it because it looks cool. That's fine. I can't argue with it. Looks cool. Now, as far as getting these panels off, it appears no screws are holding these panels on. I see a little tab here. If I push away, yeah, that comes off, and then it lifts up, and there's our glass panel there, which I will sit down over here. And again, on the other side, there's a little tab right up towards the top. I'm going to pull that towards myself, and it just unclips, and then you lift up. Solid panel. That's going to be all your cabling side of things. Now, what's unique about this case, if you notice, there's no place for a power supply to go back here on either the bigger version or this case. Instead, there's this power supply holder right here, and it's adjustable. It's got some thumb screws, and you can raise it or lower it into some pre-fixed heights, so that you can get the height you need or the clearance you need to make room for other things, like a big cooler maybe down here could bump up against this power supply holder. In that case, you'd want to lower the power supply holder down. And what they've got here is an extension cable. This right here is where you're going to plug your power cable in. And then it runs through an extension cable that you'll then plug internally inside of the computer. Power supply is completely sealed within the case. So all this is it's an extension cable. Keeps the design clean. Now, the bottom of this just pulls off the same right here on the front. It's just kind of curious, so I just pulled on it. There's no screws, and there's not even plastic tabs. It's all metal, which I like, because a lot of times plastic tabs break off. So it's just that easy to put covers back on. I mean, how much easier could it get? So coming around this side, we've got a wire tie with our front port umbilicals that we can remove. That's going to also have a little baggie with all of the hardware mounting screws that are needed for mounting the motherboard, power supply, any other hardware that you might be mounting in the case. Every case manufacturer includes screws for their case because they don't all use the same screws. They don't all have the same options for mounting the same hardware. So threading pitch of the screw, the length of the screw, the shape and color of the screw vary from one PC manufacturer to another. So I always like to keep the screws with the case. They give you way more than you're ever going to use. And so in the future, if you want to add or make any changes to the computer, you're going to want those screws. They're not easily found when it comes to sort of any standardization. It's very fast and loose in the PC industry when it comes to computer case screws. Now, we have a USB 3 header. We also have a USB Type-C header here, which is cool. That means we've got a USB Type-C up front. We have a power switch and a power LED, but no hard drive LED and no reset switch. And then the last cable we've got here is our front port audio cable. That's pretty straightforward. In this bag here, Gary Tatum says, I'm not sure I like not being able to access the power supply switch, but I guess I could just unplug it. You could plug it into a surge protector that has a switch, or you can just hold the power button in on the computer. After about 10 seconds, all computers will shut off. Not sure how often you're flipping your power supply switch off, but I would just plug it into a surge protector and hit the power switch on the surge protector. Got a little clippy here for something. Oh, we got a bunch of these little clippies. We got 2 of them. We've got some flathead screws with shoulders, which I'm guessing is for hard drive installation. Actually, it might even say on the bag. It does. It says HDD on the bag. Look at me guessing correctly. This says PSU on the bag. All right, that's your power supply unit. And SSD is what it says on the bag. But we're not going to use any of these because we've got an NVMe SSD. I'm not using a 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch hard drive on this build. But I will hold on to the screws. We'll keep them in the motherboard box so that the purchaser of this computer will be able to add those things if they choose to. You're going to need the screws, especially those hard drive screws that have the shoulders. Good luck finding those anywhere if you need to buy some. As I mentioned, a lot of times what these manufacturers do is unique when it comes to how they choose to mount hardware. So you definitely want to put those screws away. You never know. You're going to have this case 15 years. You might need the screws 15 years from now. So put them away somewhere where you know you can find them. We've got some kind of quality control check, it appears here. Inspected and passed, apparently. It's only got, it's got a stamp on it that says QC and it says pass. Everything else is written either in, guessing, Mandarin or Cantonese. I don't know. It's Chinese. So to put the power supply into this case, how do we do that? I think I'm going to start and take the front panel off again. Take that off. Take that off. Does this come off? You know what? It's got some thumb screws back here. Oh, and they're captive screws. No, they're, well, maybe they're not captive. Ah, well, one is. What's up with that? And then I'm guessing I just lift up, maybe? Maybe I slide it. I noticed there's a pull handle back here. That was a dead giveaway. Remember I said things should be intuitive. Shouldn't have to look at the directions to figure out how this opens up. If you've been a professional in the industry for decades like me, it should be pretty obvious, unless the engineers have really hidden it well, which is not very consumer friendly. In this case, that implies that it gets pulled. It slides back about an inch. Then we can lift it up. All metal. Always good to see all metal design. It means it's going to not dry and crack like plastic, not likely going to break the little tabs over the years of opening it and closing it. On the top, we've got room for a full 360-degree radiator. I was thinking about putting a liquid cooler on this since it's an 11900K, but I was just kind of curious how well the Mugen 5 is doing because I can't remember the testing Mitch and I did on it. So I let it run for 2 hours the other night with Prime 95 for 2 hours, and it never broke, I don't think it broke 77 degrees. Like, it's incredibly cool. I'm not changing that. That's perfect. All right, so now you might be able to see that internal power supply cage right there. It's vertical. The back of the power supply faces the top of the case. Clear this out of my way here so we have some more room on our bench. And I mean, I'm liking how clean the design is. Digging that. This is interesting. Check this out. Never seen a case that did this before. You're going to want to take that power supply cage out to put your power supply in. Just going to make life easier to do it that way. And it appears this screw right here and this screw right here are securing that power supply cage in place. And if you look closely, you'll see hooks right here and right here. Those hooks are holding the power supply in on the top, and these screws are securing the power supply at the bottom so that it doesn't break free like in shipping or in movement. Now, I have not seen any build videos with this case, so I'm making a lot of assumptions as we do this video live, unrehearsed and unscripted, and I'm just reverse engineering it with common sense. So it appears that the cage can lift up about 1/2 inch, and then I can pull it away. See if my assumptions are correct. I see another issue. There is a where the power supply cage sits, the metal is bent inward on each side. I guess that's to keep it from flying out this way. And let me just take a quick look here and see. Oh, that's our power supply extension cable there. What do we need to do to get this out? Oh, okay. This is really neat. I got to give kudos to the designers. This is really well thought out. This little area right here, obviously it's restricting us. It's an obstruction. But when we have a case window here, it's going to hide everything behind this, right? All those power supply cables are going to be hidden behind this. But it makes it hard to work on unless we could get this out of our way while we work on it. And it certainly appears that if we remove these 2 screws right up here, remember, I've not looked at any documentation. And these screws have flat heads. If they didn't, it would be difficult for the panel to sit flush. So 2 from the top and 2 from the bottom. And now this piece just lifts out. Here's your power supply cage. And the power supply cage has numerous places that it can sit, as I was explaining earlier, depending on how tall your power supply, some power supplies are longer than others. You might not have room to plug your cables in, or if you're putting a big 360 cooler in here, 360 millimeter. So what you can do, see if I can show this to you. These little hooks on top of the power supply cage, they're going to hook into any of these series of holes. So if we want to put it as high as possible, we can go that high up. We can go to the next series of holes. There. We can go to the next series of holes right there. And its lowest position right there. How cool is that? Where have you ever seen that done before? What other case manufacturer offers that? I've never seen it. Now, you'll notice in the video notes, I have not listed a power supply for today's build because I hadn't decided what I wanted to use. Now, if we were going to put a GPU in here, we'd want a 750 or greater power supply to power a modern day GeForce RTX video card, or even a GTX video card. The newer 40 series even wants a minimum of 850 watts. And of course, those get expensive. Power supply prices have really gone up. For just running the system as it is here, 11900K, 32 gigs of RAM, 2 terabytes, it's probably not going to pull 300 watts at like under the greatest stress. So we obviously want to give it more than what it needs, because otherwise the power supply is going to be really working hard and getting hot. It'll probably not last very long. But if we get a power supply that's like 1200 watts and we're only using 25% of it, it loses its power efficiency rating and costs you more money in electricity. So if I go back here to my computer parts storage area of horrors, let me see what power supply we'll use for today's build. Let's see, I've got an C550 ZXT. There's a C650. Ooh, C650 sounds good to me. This is a semi-modular power supply from NZXT. I bought these a while back when they were on sale, and I'm so glad I did, given the prices of power supplies the last year or so. So I've been sitting on these for a little while. And that means that if somebody wants to put a moderate GPU in here, they won't have to replace the power supply. It also means that if you do want to replace the power supply, you won't have to do a whole lot of cable management, because we're really only going to use three. We'll use the motherboard power, the CPU power, and then I don't know if we need to run power from the power supply to the monitor, or if the monitor gets powered via USB. I think it gets powered via USB, but we'll find that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Bottom line is it should be a nice, clean look. Now, when you buy a brand new power supply, it will come with its own screws. So even though the case manufacturers always include screws for the power supply, I, as a system builder, always prefer to use the screws that come with the power supply, unless they don't match the color or design of the case. I feel like I'm going to start losing some screws over here if I don't put them away. We've got 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh, I'm already missing one. Oh, there it is, 4. Okay. All right, so I am going to put these over here so I don't lose them. Keep them all together. And these little plastic clippy things, these look like these are replacements, because these are made of plastic. They could break. It looks like they've already thought of that. These are what go here. So if you're constantly removing these panels over time, as these dry out and become brittle, these could break. They might be a little difficult to find these if you needed to buy them. So they give you they give you 2 extras here should there be a breakage. These just pop in and pop out. There's no tools required. Okay, so we need to get this opened up, and we'll get the power supply mounted into the cage, get the cage mounted into the case, get the motherboard mounted into the case, get it wired up, turn it on. Now, there is one thing I am noticing that is missing from this computer case, which is a bit surprising at this price. You don't get any fans at all. Now, I have a lot of spare fans. That's not a problem, but probably you don't. If you're going to buy this case, I highly recommend you get a rear case fan. You don't have to get a front fan unless you want to put a GPU in there, in which case I highly recommend a front fan to blow air over your GPU. It's optional. It's probably not absolutely required. But if there's no GPU, no discrete GPU in here, don't waste your money on a front fan. You're just bringing in more dust. But you definitely want a rear fan. Or if you decide to pull an all-in-one cooler, then just use the fans on the cooler. Don't draw any air out the back. let all your air go out the top. Exhaust it from the top. If you have the air exhausting from the top and the back, then you have inefficient airflow, and it'll actually make your machine run hotter. If you have a computer that has both top and rear fans, disconnect the rear fan and monitor your temps. Then hook the rear fan back up and disconnect the top fan and monitor your temps. Unless, of course, your top fans are part of a radiator, in which case, don't disconnect them. But you can verify what I'm telling you is true. You're wasting your time and your money adding more fans that are actually hurting rather than helping. So let me grab my knife. This is the thumb screw for the case. I'll put that rest of the screws over here. I've been very impressed with the build quality and warranty on these NCXT power supplies. I haven't had one go bad yet, but they've got like a 10-year warranty. This one's 80 plus bronze, semi-modular. Here's how it's packaged. We get our NZXT. This kind of gives you information for support if you need to reach out to support. We've got a bag full of cables, which is going to include all of our modular cables for items we're not using on this build, but we include with the build so that the end user who buys this machine can upgrade it in the future. We have the main power cable, which you absolutely have to have. Kind of hard to turn on a computer without that. And then we have the aforementioned power supply screws, which are black, match the case, and they come from the power supply manufacturer, so we know the thread pitch and depth won't strip out or go in too deep into the power supply. So I prefer to use those just to reduce the odds of anything going sideways on me. And then inside, we have some foam and our power supply, which for some reason they put into this. I don't know what this material is called, but this is just future trash, I guess, for the landfill. The last thing that's in here is some silica gel, some desiccant. All right. What are we doing in the chat room here? Oh, Thomas Mac T accidentally timed somebody out. He didn't mean to. So when people mistakenly time people out, quite often I'll remove their moderator status if it means that they just can't seemingly control what they're doing. I know you, I know you're cool, but please don't let that happen again. If it's something that you keep making a mistake, I'm going to remove that option so you won't make a mistake ever again. It's really inconvenient to the innocent victim, and it can cause harm to the channel. So, yeah, please be careful if you're blue. Okay, all right. Power supply. Got to go in. Let's see, is it going to go this way? I think we want this to go in with the power connector on the right side. And then the power supply fan will be facing the inside of the case instead of the front. I'm also thinking about where this extension cable's got to run. It will accept the power supply in either direction. And it's vented on both sides, so the fan will be able to breathe, whether we're going to be drawing air in from the front of the case or drawing air in from inside of the case instead of from the front of the case. The difference is if I mount it this way, then our power cables are going to be away from the motherboard, and that's going to make our cable management look terrible. I would want this mounted with the fan facing the inside of the case. Remember, it's going to be drawing air in from the inside of the case and exhausting the air back inside the case. So keep that in mind. You're not really saving anything as far as temperature goes from drawing air from the front. You're still going to exhaust the hot air into your computer case. And remember, people have an unhealthy fascination, fixation, and obsession with the heat of a computer. It's really weird. And it's completely unjustifiable unless you're doing something extreme that your computer wasn't engineered to do, such as overvolting or overclocking, in which case it makes sense you'd be obsessed with heat. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of time and money to try and solve a heat problem you don't have, or to constantly be monitoring for a heat problem you don't have. It's just like you're just looking for a problem. That's what it is. So anyway, if we put the power supply in this way, and it's going to be mounting this way, then our cables are going to be hanging on the left side here, and that's going to be where the motherboard tray is. That's going to be a much cleaner cabling install. So for that reason, aesthetically, because we do have a case window, I'm going to put the power supply in with the fan facing the inside of the case. So I don't just do things. I explain to you what the logic and reasoning. We're not ritualizing things. We are understanding how they work, pros and cons, and we make the decision that best suits our desired outcome. So you don't have to do it the way I do. But I don't just do it and say, I do it because I said so. I explain the logic and reasoning. Now, whether or not that applies to you or has any value to you, I don't care. I'm not looking for your approval. I'm trying to share with you my experience. Power supply will work equally well in either direction. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna get these screws started here. A little awkward to do it this way. Huh, it doesn't want to go in. Move over to the next one. Okay. Those threads were needing a little breaking in. And then I'm going to grab my regular number 2 Phillips here and just tighten these bad boys down. And the black power supply is going to match the black cage and matches the black case. So aesthetically, this is very pleasing. And then we can decide how far up we want to put this cage. We want to go closer to the top or closer to the middle, or all the way towards the bottom position. Now, if I put this up at the top, you'll see that we're not going to have a whole lot of room to mount a liquid all-in-one cooler here, because when you put your fan there, it's, you know, if it's a full 360 millimeter cooler, they're going to try and occupy the same space. The two objects of mass cannot occupy the same space at the same time. It's like physics. So since I'm not going to put an all-in-one cooler in here, it's nice to know it's capable. What I would do is add a rear case fan. And we have a leftover case fan from Be Quiet. That looks like it's a 120. It doesn't look like a 140. It looks like a small 120. We have a ton of fans here. This Be Quiet one is a 140. Oops. I think I have a Noctua Chromax 120, brand new in a box, if I'm not mistaken. Well, looky here. A Noctua case fan, Chromax, should fit beautifully right back there. Wish I didn't have those ugly brown rubber bumpers, but this is something that came out of a system. It doesn't have any dust on it, so I think it was put into a system mistakenly. It wasn't really used, but I had already discarded the box and everything. I don't know why the brown is on there. You know what? It's like a $30 fan, so I think I can live with the brown in the back where no one's going to see it anyway. So now we need to decide, do we want to keep the power supply up towards the top? Do I want to lower it a little bit? I kind of feel like I'm going to leave it right there. I think that's a good fit, good position. So I will take the 2 screws I removed from there and we'll put them back in. Those were the regular case type screws. Glasses for this. Looks like I'm missing one of them. So we'll put one back here. Pretty much where we took it out earlier, same place. And then somewhere around here, I should have the other screw that probably I knocked down off the bench, because I tend to do that. Oh, hear my knees cracking? It go. It's a fairly large computer case screw. It should stick out like a sore thumb here on the carpet, and I don't see it. Maybe I did not knock it down. The good news is it's a pretty common screw. I have lots of them, but I prefer to put the one in I took out. What did I do with it? It's missing. All right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I knocked it down. I just don't know how hard I hit it. I don't know how far I knocked it. It's a standard black hex head. It's the most common screw used on computer cases. I have plenty of them. This is more of a matter of principle. I know it just didn't up and vanish. I was probably standing here and moving some things around. Sometimes these cables, when they're loose, they swing around on the bench, and they'll push things off the bench like a cat knocking something off of a counter. Just take one more quick look, and then I will just grab a spare one instead. Hold the whole build up over something so silly, but it should be pretty obvious. Again, it's not like it's a little M2 screw. It's a fairly large screw. I don't know where it went though. I really need to be more meticulous with where I set the screws down. I don't know what I did with it. So we will just grab an extra one. Should have in this jar. Should have a ton of those. Very, very common screws. I could also just steal one out of the same screws that they've given us for the power supply here. In this bag right here, same screw. No, that's the SSD. That's motherboard. These are the power supply screws. Same screws. I'm sure when we're done with the broadcast, I'll see it immediately when I'm not live trying to, have the pressure of keeping the show moving forward. Okay. So that is our power supply installed. This is the power supply extension cable, and we just need to turn it around this way. So if we were to turn the power supply the other direction, then we wouldn't have to make a U-turn with this cable. But at the end of the day, I think it makes more sense to do it this way, except I am noticing that our power supply on-off switch is right there. Since this cable has a bend on it, it's going to mostly cover that switch up. Not sure how well you can see that. But that is covering the switch up. It's right behind it. You'd still get to it, but if we were to have this power supply flip the other way, and again, it varies from one power supply manufacturer to another, where the proximity of the power input is to the switch. On these NZXTs, I guess they put the power switch right in line, which is a bad place for it. Because if you have an L-shaped connector, if it goes on in a certain orientation, cable goes over the switch. That's just a bad engineering design. It's not taking into account any alternative in a standard computer tower case. It doesn't take into consideration somebody might be having a case where the power supply installs in a non-traditional manner. And it wouldn't have been any big engineering feat to simply move the power switch a little further away and a little further up or down so that they weren't directly in line with the power input plug. Regardless, it is what it is, and it's more important to me that these cables here, these cables down here, are going to be coming out closest to the motherboard tray instead of closest to the glass. It's just more aesthetically pleasing. That I'm going to see every day. I'll probably never touch that switch, so once it's set, it won't matter. And if I do have to, it's not like it's inaccessible. It's just cables going over. And that's not the case manufacturer's fault. That is the fault of the power supply manufacturer. Just didn't take into consideration any alternative mounting positions. Okay, so all on the engineers. With our power supply in, the next thing we can put in is the motherboard. And I need to make sure our motherboard standoffs are already in place and whether or not we have to move them. Now, if this was a regular ATX case, I can guarantee the default standoff positions would need to be moved to accommodate a micro ATX board. But Micro ATX boards can mount in like 4 different screw positions. So I'm just curious where the default standoffs are here. We've got 1, 2, 3 up against the back, 1, 2 in the middle, and 1, 2 on the far opposite side. So I'm going to do what I call a dry fit, and that means I'm going to set this in and see if it aligns with the default position of the standoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Oh. So this motherboard has mounting point right down here, which is pretty uncommon. Case accommodates that, but does not have a standoff already installed there. So we have to go to our bag of extra parts here. And this bag says MB for motherboard or main board. And they do give us these spare standoffs. It looks like 2 spare standoffs and a standoff socket so that you could put the socket over the hexagon standoff and then use a Phillips screwdriver to tighten it. Now, of course, I don't do that. That's too garage mechanic. I use a 5mm socket, ratcheting wrench. So let's cut this bag open and we'll get our standoffs out of here. It bothers me when I have to cut bags open for things that I know I'm going to have spare parts. I wish they'd use a little Ziploc like this. That's why I save these little bags. And then what I'll do is I don't want to mix these screws up with the ones I've removed. The ones I removed, I'm going to put back in where they came from. And these, I'm only going to use the ones I need. These are additional. And I want them in a resealable bag because we're not supposed to use all, well, you could use all of them, but you know, you'd have to spend a lot of money on hardware to utilize every one of those. That's just part of my OCD and keeping organized. I don't want the screws all spilling out in the box. The poor customer's trying to find them, or worse, I'm trying to find them. Bear with me here for a second, guys. Okay. All right. So what I need to do is put this additional standoff in here. So I'm going to grab the standoff. And there's 2 possible positions where this can go. Wasn't paying close enough attention. I'm going to guess it's going to be the furthest one away. And if I'm wrong, I'll have to move it. And you know what? I'm going to leave these screws out of this bag, but I'm going to keep the bag right next to them because we're going to need those screws to go into those standoffs to tighten the motherboard to secure it down to the to the inside of the case. All right, so now with that in place, let me take this motherboard and dry fit it one more time and see if I have guessed correctly. I did guess correctly. And so we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws. Holy cow. A full-size ATX motherboard typically only takes 8 screws, with one middle being a post to sort, to align the board. This doesn't have that. These are all just standoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 standoffs. Yeah. And so we'll need 8 of these screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's going to leave us with the standoff socket, 1 extra standoff, and 4 extra screws. So I don't know why they give you 3 more screws than you need, because obviously for every standoff you need a screw. And if they're giving you a total of 9 standoffs, it doesn't make any sense why they've given us 12 screws. Weird. Must be a logic to it. I have no idea. Now, our I/O shield is already installed here, so we don't have to worry about fussing around with that. And now we can secure the board down. I'll just get these screws started. I don't want to tighten them down just in case I need to maneuver the board a bit to get the holes to align with the standoffs below. Since this does not have the center standoff, with the post to hold the board in place for us, the board is just kind of free to roam here. And the benefit of that is it gives us a lot of control over adjustment. Sometimes when people put their motherboards in, they don't realize that the board is sitting angular. Like they've got it back up against the back of the case, but then the top screws align and the bottom screws slowly start going out of alignment as the board is kind of getting twisted. So that allows us to put pressure where we need it to get this pushed up towards me or towards the back for the holes to align. Now I'm feeling confident and I'm tightening them down. I hope I don't regret it. This doesn't seem like it went in very far. Huh. That one feels better. Yeah, right is in there. Now they're just getting torqued down. These don't have to be all that tight. We just don't want the board to be able to be, by moving the case around, especially if it's being shipped, it goes through a lot of vibration, and then if the screws aren't tight, they'll start to vibrate themselves loose and eventually fall out. And that can lead to damage in shipping. It could also lead to a screw shorting out against a circuit on the motherboard or in the power supply, and everything goes really sideways after that. So it's important the screws are tight, but you don't have to over tighten them. Just make sure that they're secure. That's all. Now, you notice on the bottom of this case, we have a giant filter under here. Didn't notice this before. And it appears that we have room for a 360-degree radiator to go down here. I think putting any kind of a fan or radiator at the bottom of the case is just the single worst location you could put a fan. Unless you want to turn your computer into a vacuum cleaner, I would avoid any fans on the bottom of a case. The only time I've seen it done where it makes any sense is when people are going for the Las Vegas marquee look, where they've got fans all across the entire thing, which I think is gaudy and childish, but it doesn't make sense engineering wise to put your fans on the bottom. So you do you. You can put your fans wherever you want. None of my business what you do with your fans. But I wouldn't build a system with fans on the bottom of the case unless there were special circumstances or special requests from the customer. Strongly advise against it. So here's what that looks like now that we've got the board installed. And I guess, see, what do I want to do now? I can put this fan on. Now I just need some standard fan screws, and I think they probably gave us some fan screws. Well, this is good to know. They not only don't give you any fans, they don't give you any screws for fans. Now, at the price that this case comes in at, I find that extraordinarily stingy. The very least they should do is provide you with screws. Now, when you buy case fans, they typically come with screws, whether you're buying Corsair or Noctua, Be Quiet. Usually in the box with the fan will be the fan screws. Nonetheless, it's pretty industry standard to include case screws. Even on cases that come with fans, often include additional fan screws to add additional fans optionally. That's weird. Not sure why they did that. Odd judgment call. Now, fan screws are probably the most common screw that I have more of than anything else, and I'm always happy to rid myself of 4 more out of 4,000. So it's not like I'm even going to miss them. It's the principle of it. And I think I'm going to turn these by hand. I also want to make sure I put the fan in the right direction. That would probably be helpful. I think I'm going to go that way. These are super easy to strip out, which is why I'm not using an electric driver. On occasion, I will use my electric driver on these, but I'm always very, very careful not to over tighten them. So that's what that fan's going to look like in there. And then we can start hooking up our power cables. So I can remove the wire tie here. Now you'll notice, I want to point this out as we get further into the build, that there's a cutout right here. And that's to run the data cable and power cable to the monitor if you choose to affix it to the front. And that's going to go right over where the power connector is for the power supply, which again suggests it would have been better for the power connector to be on the other side by flipping the power supply around. But I absolutely do not want those power supply cables coming out by the glass panel. Like, you know, even now, having those cables run by each other is not ideal. However, having these cables come out down here by the front of the glass is not ideal either. Wait a minute. It just occurred to me, though. Nobody's going to see it, are they? Because we have this panel that's going to go on there. Maybe that's why they give you the panel. So that if I rotate that power supply on the other direction, and now these cables are going to come out right here near the glass, we just put this case panel back on here. And you would never know, would you? Well, golly, now that I've come to this realization on this unscripted and unedited video, I think I am going to turn that power supply around for those reasons that I've mentioned, both having to twist this main power cable around, that it goes over the power button, and that our cabling from our monitor, which I intend to hook up, is then going to be right next to that power cable. We don't want any big power source or power cable next to a data transmission cable, or it can cause interference and just lead to some weird stuff happening on the screen. And I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it seems to me that because of that panel, that makes it excusable to go ahead and turn this power supply around. And before we get into this too deep, we'll take care of that right now. See, if there's two ways to do it, I'm going to do it the hard way. But again, we're not ritualizing things. We're doing things so it makes sense, whether it's an aesthetic or it's the cable management. We each decide that on our own builds what our priorities are. And as you can see, mine changed. I had a certain perspective, and as I started to build it and get closer to getting done, started to see where there was some interference. And upon realizing that piece is going to hide it, it makes my concern irrelevant. So now that I've realized that, better late than never, it's super easy to just flip this power supply around. Real super easy. I just realized one of these screws smooth on the bottom and the other has teeth. I want those to match too, even though nobody's ever going to see that but a builder. That's just the kind of detail guy I am, I tell you. So somewhere in here, there's one with teeth right there. You're probably going, what is he talking about? Some screws for computers, they have a little grooves on the bottom to keep them from, as a deterrent from vibrating loose. If you look really closely, that screw has little teeth on it. And the same screw, it visually looks the same, but underneath that screw, it's completely smooth. Now, in all likelihood, it won't make an iota of difference with regards to the screw unscrewing itself because I tighten them up really tight. But I want everything to match OCD. I care about details like that. Not many builders do. They just slap it together, say close enough. I don't. So you might consider that a strength, or you might consider that a weakness. But I have a certain level of quality that I absolutely demand. Otherwise, I don't want to be a part of the project. I don't want my name associated with something that's done half-ass. Not as a professional, maybe as a hobbyist, not as a professional. Now I'm going to turn this power supply around so that the fan will then face the inside of the case. A little difficult to do standing on its cables here, but if I put it at the edge of the desk, then I can have most of the power supply hanging, on the bench, and then the cables hanging off the edge of the bench. So this will sit flat, which makes it a lot easier to get the screws in straight. Oops. It slipped on me. Loosen these up. There we go. That's better. Perfect. Perfecto. Oh, I take it back. I mean to say the power supply fan is now going to face the front of the case. It's going to be drawing air in from the front of the case. Where it's open, that's the part that goes to the front of the case. And where it's closed, that's the part that goes on the inside. So once again, I'm going to hang the power supply here on the topmost two hooks. I just might lower it down one. Now that I'm looking at it, that'll give me a little bit more room for those cables for the monitor. Not that it really needs it, but it just feels a little more elbow roomy. So just a judgment call and a personal preference. And now we'll go ahead and secure that in place. There's one. There's the other one. I just want to check those by hand, make sure that those are good and tight, because that power supply is heavy, and if this ends up getting shipped to somebody, it's likely going to be on the other side of the country, and the shippers can be really rough with how they toss boxes around, and that could very easily break off if the screws aren't really tight, holding that securely. So with that done, now take my power supply, motherboard power cable, the big 24 pin, and we'll slap that on there. In fact, you know what we could do? Looking at the way they did the cable management options on this case, it looks like what they want you to do is to go out this big hole back here. And that way, people looking in from the glass window would never know that the power supply was over here. And route that right in through here, see? Isn't that clever? Okay, there's one. Then, of course, we've got the power supply extension cable, which I have now pinched because I wasn't paying attention when I put the power supply in. So I'm going to take the power supply back out here, just the two screws, so I can free up that extension cable. This is GPU power, which I don't know why that is hooked up on a semi-modular. The only two cables we should have on a semi-modular or the power for the motherboard and the power for the CPU power. So that's kind of weird. But they have a nice little cutout right up here that we can use. And then we can plug this. This is really easy to get my hands in here. I appreciate that. And then that's our CPU power there. And then I am going to remove, I hope for the last time, power supply. I'm going to leave it in the cage. I just need to lift the cage up because I have trapped, inadvertently wasn't paying attention, and I've trapped the extension cable. See, it's down here. It's supposed to be up at the top. So let me just lift that up and out of the way because I wasn't paying attention. Now I make sure that that power supply extension cable is running across the top here so that it can be plugged in. I knew I should have screwed it down first, but it felt like it's hanging there pretty solid. So as long as I don't let it push away from there. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and put these two screws back in. That one's done. That one's done. Check it by hand one more time. I do this enough times, I should get really good at it. So when I do the other build, you know, for the other Jonsbo build that's a little taller, the full ATX, I should be really good at it. Now that I'm seeing all the unique idiosyncrasies of this case design, it's very unique, and I got no complaints. I like it. We have a lot of cable management area here on the back, so we can hide our extension cable. And with that all done, we can put this panel back in. Push that slack all the way to the back. So essentially what it starts to look like is a nice clean install here. For sure, for sure. And then our GPU. Just gonna put that GPU power cable inside of here just to get it out of my way. And then we've got a USB 3.0 front port header here, and that's got to go just right there, like so. And then I have front port audio. Now, front port audio traditionally goes all the way at the bottom towards the back of the case. And they've accommodated us here really thoughtfully with these cable management holes down here. So I want to use the one all the way as far to the back of the case as I can get. So we just run that right in there. Then I just plug it onto the front port audio header on the motherboard. Just in this bottom left corner. It traditionally is in the bottom left quadrant of all ATX and micro ATX boards. Our rear case fan, we can just go ahead and plug that into our fan header that's up here by the CPU power header. And once again, super easy access to this because with the top off, I can just reach straight down in there. So as far as working on this case goes, it's very user-friendly to work inside of. And then I just need to find a way to hide that cable. And it'll look something like that. Then we have our USB 3.1 Type-C front port umbilical cable. That needs to plug in right here. It's kind of hard to show it to you and do it at the same time. Where's camera girl when you need her, you know? Where did I say that was? Bring this in right through here. Okay, so that's our front port. USB Type-C. And then finally we have our power switch and power LED, and then we're all done except for hooking up the front monitor. And this doesn't have a reset switch or hard drive LED, so that's less cables we have to hook up. So, power LED first, positive cable goes to the first pin on the top. The negative cable goes to the second pin on the top, starting from the left side of the connector. It's pretty much universal across all motherboards, except Mini ITX. Actually, even Mini ITX, the pattern is the same. It's just the location of the connector is usually up by the top of the board instead of the bottom. But that varies from one Mini ITX to another. It's not even a common standard one way or the other, quite frankly. One manufacturer does it one way, another manufacturer does it another. They have their preferences and their reasons. But with ATX and micro ATX boards, they all pretty much universally have the same pinout locations for the front port umbilicals. Okay, so with that done, we could certainly, if we want to, put this front panel back on here. That's how hard that is. This we're going to leave off because we're going to put the monitor in place. And then we have the top piece, which is wherever I set it down. Here. That's going to go on like so. Tabs will slide into those holes. Then the whole piece will slide forward. And then the two thumb screws hold this piece on back here. Now, when it comes to installing the monitor, they've given us the monitor in a whole separate package. And when we open up this box here, which is apparently taped closed, this could be like an accessory that's sold separately, quite frankly, the way that they've done this. And when we open that up, see, we've got our documentation. We've got a USB Type A to USB Type C cable. We have a micro HDMI to standard HDMI, or I guess that's mini HDMI. We have these very long standoffs, and those long standoffs are used to screw into the back of the screen to act as feet, so you can set this up like a picture frame. And then finally, we have in this plastic our 8-inch color LCD monitor. Now I'll bring this over to you and give you a look. Essentially, what we've got is just a little computer monitor. And it's got these little nubs that stick out so you can pop it into the case. On the side here, we've got a couple buttons. This is your brightness up and down. And the other button is to turn off the backlight. And then finally, right down here, you'll see there's a screw hole here and one above it. That's where you put those long standoffs. If you put the long standoff at the bottom, the screen is more raked straight up and down. If you put the standoff on the higher hole, then when you set it down, it tilts back a little bit. And then with regards to where the cables plug in, I don't see any connectors. What am I missing? Oh, connectors are right in there. There's your HDMI input and your USB-C input. And then this will just go like that. Now, I'm not going to hook that up just yet. Let's just put that in its holding place for right now. And let's just verify that everything works. And I'm sure it will. And then once we verify it works, we'll go ahead and try running, I guess, a USB Type-C. Trying to think the most efficient way to run that. Almost seems like they should have made this an internal header. It's what it is. All right, so I need a keyboard and a mouse. Go with that and that. And I'm going to use a USB port up front. That's these USB ports. We have one USB 3 Type A and one USB Type C. That stinks that they basically steal one of our USB Type A's, because that USB 3 plug that I plugged in gives us two USBs. So if the case manufacturer is only returning one to us, that means the other one's just lost to the ether, which sucks. And they do that to save money, so they don't have to buy another USB plug. But when you're at this price of a case already, what's another $2, to give me a second USB 3 Type A up front? I really would have liked two USB 3 Type A's and one Type C. So I don't know why they shorted me one at this price point. This isn't exactly a bargain basement case. It's priced fair for what you get. But at this price, I expect fan screws. I expect a hard drive LED. I could live without the reset switch, but you should give me the hard drive LED. And you should have given me that second USB Type A. Since you're taking it anyway, you're just not giving it to me, which stinks. But hopefully this is going to be such a beautiful case, we'll say it's worth it. We'll live with that limitation, that unnecessary limitation, unjustifiable. Now, that's power, keyboard and mouse. I need a HDMI cable. We're using onboard graphics with our Intel 11900K. Plug it into the network since Windows 10 is already installed. Oops. Guess I shouldn't grab it by the front and try and rotate it. All right, so power button. Check and make sure that the power supply switch is in the on position. Yeah, so either way, that cable's going over the switch regardless of how we orient the power supply, just so you know. Okay, we have a little tiny blue light that comes on in the center of the power button. And again, I have not hooked up that front monitor yet. So let's go over to our HDMI input. and we'll make sure everything boots okay. The other thing I like about the system when I was testing it is it's with that Mugen 5 Revision C cooler, it's just super quiet. Even when Prime 95 was hammering the heck out of it, it maintained really, really low noise. You almost couldn't even hear the fan. It was very subtle. So I can imagine once the system's in a case and it's all enclosed, you won't hear it at all. And that was under, worst case scenario. So let me go full screen over here for me so I can see it the way you guys can. It's our resolution. That's weird. I'm not getting the top of the screen here. That's a weird resolution. Let's do 1920, 1080. Baffled. Getting a weird border up here. Shut down and restart. You guys can calculate how long the system takes to boot. Ready? Start your clocks. It is whisper quiet. We'll take a look at our system properties. And we'll verify we have the 11900K processor, the 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and look at our storage. Two terabyte. Right click, go to properties. Under hardware, we can see that's a Samsung 970E Plus. We also have the Samsung Magician software down here that can confirm the drive is installed and that the software and firmware are currently up to date for the NVIDIA drive. Okay, so as suspected, everything's working peachy keen. And now the question is how to enable this monitor. So let's try a couple things here. Let me go back over to camera one momentarily while we leave the machine running. And I'm going to grab this USB cable that they've enclosed. Let me step around. They've given us a really long cable here because it's got to go essentially from the front all the way to the back and then plug into a USB port on the motherboard behind the case, back of the case. So I will plug our USB Type-C in right there. And I just don't know if we're going to need the HDMI cable or not. So for right now, we're just going to try USB only. Feed that through. Slack through. Now, I'm not worried about making the cabling look pretty. I'm just going to run this outside of the case momentarily and just don't know if we could use one of these USB 2 ports. During the first install, it may be loading a driver, and I'm looking at the screen, the same as you guys are, looking to see if I get any backlight turned on here. Let me switch back over to the desktop, see if it's identified that we plugged anything into it. In fact, let me restart it. I'm just kind of curious if when the desktop comes up, if it initializes the screen, or if I'm going to have to use that HDMI cable, or if I have to use a USB 3 port. Because right now, I don't even see the screen lighting up. Interesting. Good to know. I want to just double check my resolution here. This should be at 1920 by 1080. So I don't know why I'm getting this weird border. Huh. Let's go back. Let's go back to camera 1. Let me just move this USB plug to a USB 3 slot. When we first plug it in, it has to load drivers, so don't expect something right away. Give it a minute. And this motherboard has, these ports are USB 3.2. And I also have a red USB port back here, which usually means it can power something when the computer's off, like charging your phone. So I'm going to try this USB 3 port up here. Is the rear fan turning? I know what these Noxia was. It's hard to tell. But yes, the rear fan is turning. Okay, so one other thing I want to check, go back to the desktop. I want to see if it identifies a second monitor is plugged in and we have to turn it on. So we'll go back under display settings. Detect. It's not detecting another display. Wireless display. That. Right click here, go to device manager. Remember, I'm not reading any directions or anything. I'm just trying to figure this out through common sense and familiarizing myself with what the designers decided to do here. So it does appear that we're going to have to run an HDMI cable. Okay, well, so be it. So let's go back to camera 1 and got the HDMI cable cable enclosed. But I don't have any extra HDMI ports on the back of this motherboard, but I do have a display port. So I'll use one of my display port to HDMI adapters here. And we'll plug into the display port back here. Okay, there's our mini HDMI. We'll plug that in. So and immediately our desktop is displayed. So we do have to have both cables. And I don't think it matters where we plug the USB. I mean, I think if I take this USB cable out and I plug it in up here on the USB 2, yeah, it's just providing power. That's all it's doing. Sure would be nice if it provided video too, but that's okay. Now, as for how we want to use that screen, it's just a second monitor. So you can extend your desktop to it. You can mirror your desktop to it. You could set up A to 64, like if we go to, let's go back to our desktop here. See, now we have different options now that it's detected the second screen. And of course, that second screen has a different resolution. And it's also showing it's in a, for some reason it shows it's in a vertical portrait position when I want it in landscape. You can usually take that out of portrait, put it in landscape mode, changes. And that's the maximum resolution. It can't do 1920 by 1080. Most it can do here is 1280 by 800 is its max. And then we can close all this out. Edge. And we'll go to, we want ADA 64. Let's have a trial. Not quite sure which of these versions we actually need, but Extreme should cover it. Boy, they just flooded this page with advertising. There's an ad, there's an ad, there's an ad, there's a see to download free. That's an ad, that's an ad. Where is our actual download? Here. That's sketchy. Super sketchy. People that sell or make this application, they're just grabbing money anywhere they can grab it. Trying to find the download link to their product is more difficult than finding all the download links to their advertisers, which isn't why I came to the page. I didn't come to the page to get zip tech or to get any of this other nonsense. The smallest link possible for downloads is the one you want to get the actual product we came here for. This big download button is for a driver downloader. You should never use a driver downloader in 2023. Got to be living in the past. Complete waste of time and money. Okay, so we'll let that install. Get all those ads out of my face. Launch ADIX, view the, no, not reading documentation. This program is not free. Okay, that's fine. So I'm not quite sure where we go in here to configure this to show whatever information we want to show, but this is the piece of software that does it. Turn camera 1 on here so you can see both things happening at the same time. Put myself up in a corner. And let's see if we can figure this out. Stress testing, I don't care about that. So somewhere in here, there should be a way to toggle having it display what we want to monitor onto that second screen. But it does so much more than that. You know, this does benchmarking and all kinds of completely useless hobbyist stuff. So, yeah, they even have CPU ID, which is just ugly as heck to try and read that. Oh, because it's trying. Okay, is anybody in the chat familiar with AIDA64 to get us to that screen? Making a sensor panel with AIDA is a pain. You'll need to go to File, Preferences, and Enable Sensor Panel. Then you need to build the sensors. File and Preferences and enable it. Well, knowing it's called a sensor panel helps. Show sensor panel. See what it's doing. Let me step around. Oh, yeah, someone mentioned the screen is upside down. So there's probably 2 different ways you can fix this. No, it only goes in one way. We can obviously change the landscape mode, flip it the other way. And that was one of the 4 settings. There was 2 landscape modes and 2 portrait modes, each being 180 degrees from the other. So back under full screen here so I can see. Display settings, monitor 1, we want to put in landscape flipped. Should have solved that problem. Should be a way to adjust the size of the sensor panel. Size. So I don't know what you're supposed to put here. Maybe it's our resolution of this second screen. What was our resolution of that screen? It was no, display settings. screen number 1280 by 800. So let's just put that 1280. 800. Now, I can't see anything because the computer's facing you guys. It's not facing me. Step around. So when you're in ADA 64, you can choose what you want to monitor, what sort of dials or graphs you want to see, how you want to present it. It's all customizable, and you do have to pay for this program. It's not a free program. Or you could run your VLC and put your movies on there, and while you're working, have your movies playing there on the second screen. And let me go back full screen on camera 1. You'll get a better idea. That looks like. Anyway, that's pretty much our build. A little bit of cable management, not much. Glass panel, solid panel. We're rocking and we're rolling. It's all good. Now, me personally, I would not use this to monitor temps. I think you guys that do that are just wasting your time. It's pretty unusual that a computer runs into any heat problems or anything you're going to see on that screen that's going to do anything but cause you anxiety and waste your time. It's your time and it's your anxiety, and you're welcome to have as much of it as you want. I would rather use that for something more useful, such as watching little movies on it, or if I'm using OBS and I've got the computer facing me, I could have my OBS screen there so I could monitor it that way instead of this way. There's a ton of different applications of practical usage besides just monitoring. At the end of the day, when it's yours, you can use it any way you want to. But do understand that you will spend money for that. Because as far as I know, anything that you can throw onto the screen designed to be a sensor panel costs money. If you want to spend money to look at information that's completely pointless, that very rarely will ever change, and will only serve to get you worried about things that you have no control over, really, have at it. But I like the idea of being able to use this for like anything but that. You could have your family photos just on rotation there as a side, or you could have electric sheep running on, electric sheep running on that would be kind of cool. Just to have that running as a type of an RGB. So if we go back to HDMI input here, and instead of doing what all the sheep do, let's go get electric sheep and do what the other sheep do. Real sheep. So I'm going to go here. Well, wrong mouse. I'm going to go here. Cancel that. I want to download. At least this is free. Would you like to install a shortcut? Sure, why not? Would you like to make your current screensaver? Sure, why not? Finish. Need to step around. Again, I cannot see the front of this computer. Seeing something somewhere. I'm just trying to figure out why I'm not full screen over here. Let me drag it over for a second. Somewhere in here, there's an option to go full screen on that second monitor. It's not running. Well, there is a way. It's hard for me to do this when I'm on a live video. And like I say, I try to keep the video moving and we still go 4 hours, you know? But if we go back now to camera one, like to me, just having that as like a little RGB thing, I don't know. I just think that's way more useful and more pleasant than having some anxiety and overkill of information overload. That's more or less going to just offer you no useful information other than, you know, your machine's running within its normal operational parameters regarding frequency and speed. How often is your computer ever going to, you know, require intervention due to frequency or speed? It should never, ever happen. Never, not once in the entire life of the computer, unless you're doing something to it that goes beyond its original design specification. So, you know, you're bringing that on yourself. I would much rather use this for something relaxing, not something that's going to wind me up and give me anxiety. And again, when this sets as a screensaver and goes off only on monitor number, that's monitor number one, you won't see the window bar or the task manager. So I'm in like a preview mode right now. But I believe if I go back here, screening, should be able to, let's see, I got it here. Let's close that. Let's go here to sheep one more time. I just want to make sure that this isn't display, single display. Display monitor 1, display monitor 0, 2 or 3. Interesting. Say display monitor 0. Still showing on screen. Can't win. I don't like that there's no apply button here, so I have to, when I hit OK, it's closing it. No matter what I do to run this, it still keeps running on the secondary display. Interesting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say single monitor, display 0. Click OK, and then we'll go to personalize, and we'll go to our screen saver. Saver settings. Electric sheep, 1 minute. Okay, I'm good with that. So let's let it sit for 1 minute and let the screensaver kick on, and we'll see if it kicks on monitor 1 or monitor 2. When it kicks on, then we should be over the taskbar, so we don't see the taskbar, and we shouldn't see any window frame. So we'll keep an eye on that, and then I'm going to turn back camera 1 here, see what happens. So while we're waiting, if there's any final questions, it's almost 4 p.m. That's going to put us at a 3-hour broadcast. Thank goodness the motherboard was already prepped. See what I'm saying? Because that was a 3-hour. So all in all, to build a computer, it's generally, for me, it's a 3-day process. It's usually 1 day prepping the board and getting the operating system installed, all the updates, drivers, etc. The next day, it's putting the motherboard into the case, getting everything cabled up. And then I'll usually, at that point, wait another day to do the cable management. Because I do so much of this, I don't want to sit down and do all of it at once. It's a good 6 to 10 hours of work. So I prefer to break it up into pieces. But you go at your own pace. And let me make this screen a little bit smaller so I can see if screensaver starts on the main screen. So any last questions or concerns, this will be the time to ask. I'm just looking through the chat to see what I've missed here. V Manor says you can use Specky. I guess I don't really want to display specs. I just think that's dumb. But, you know, having electric sheep or something running, that I think is cool. That in the sense of, you know, having RGB, which to me is silly for the most part. I'll do RGB for attracting views. I don't really want it myself. No computer that I have runs RGB. The Xenos build is about the closest to that. Like the big robot's foot is RGB that I actually like, but even, you know, Camera Girl will be having that. I won't use it personally. And this one here, that's the streamer, and that's used basically as clickbait. I'll click on it. Now, it's been over a minute, and our screensaver has not started. So that's frustrating. So maybe what I need to do is restart this computer with these settings in effect. I want to say thank you to everybody who's contributed to today's live stream. Thank you to all my members who make these builds possible. Thank you if you're in the chat room and you participate in interacting with us. Appreciate that you understand the difference of what we're doing here versus other YouTube channels that generally do not interact with their audience, certainly not at the level that I do, with edited, polished, scripted videos that never show any mistakes and don't really give you a real, genuine, authentic idea of how long things take and how often mistakes are made. And these mistakes are a normal process of learning. If we never make mistakes, we never learn. And they're never a situation where, oh no, I've made a mistake and everything ruined. That never happens. I make a mistake, I correct it. It's really not a big deal. So mistakes aren't something that should be ashamed of. They're something that you should be proud of. It's those mistakes, it's those challenges and those obstacles that we have to overcome that build our character and make us more intelligent. So bring on the mistakes, I say. I don't do the mistakes on purpose, but when I do them, it should not be embarrassing or humiliating. It means you're a human being and you're learning. Now, if you're not learning, then you should be embarrassed and humiliated. Let's see. Screen went to 144p over here for some reason. I want it on 1080. That's much sharper. Overall, the quality of the Jonsbo case is excellent. I've got no complaints with regards to how they've designed it. I suppose not having the fan screws is not that big of a deal, but it sure would be nice at this price point that it would have come with a rear case fan. That's my biggest complaint. Shouldn't have to buy a case fan at these prices. One rear case fan isn't going to break the bank. Give me one USB type A port up front. Was a chintzy move you see on cheap cases. At this price point, it's unacceptable. It should have given us two full-size type A's in addition to the one type C. It still uses the same connector anyway. So they're effectively sealing one of your USB ports. You don't get it back. At this price point, unacceptable. Other than that, they're pretty minor complaints. Everything else, I'm real happy with the design. It's a thoughtful design. It's easy to work on. You saw the way the panels come off super easy. Everything comes apart. You can get your hands in there for wiring up that tight fit. I often have a little struggle with getting that CPU power cable. No issue here. Great number of cable management ports here and little bridges to tie things down with zip ties. That's all well thought out. Yeah, my complaints on this are pretty minor. Could use a little improvement, but overall, I think it's a good solid buy. Quality case, it's well built, it's well thought out. I don't know why my screensaver's not running. Certainly should have started by now. don't know where they move this. Been a long time since I've used a screensaver. Still wants to go to monitor 1. See if it's downloading the fractal algorithms when the screen goes black like that. So, not sure why it's doing that. Oh, you know what? I'm thinking, let's go back here to settings. Display. Let's just see if that makes it happy. Let's see. Is it doing that on both displays? It is, but it's not going full screen on that second display. So I suspect I'm in the right neighborhood here figuring this out. Display. Dependent. Let's try that. That is working, just not at the right resolution. So, good to know. At least I'm getting the results I'm looking for. So that's all set correctly. Set resolution. Change that to single. What is? Oh, it puts us back onto the screen again. Got to be independent. So we definitely want independent. Why is it not going full screen? Something I'll have to play with. It's, you know, not mission critical or anything, but it is definitely something that that I could waste a lot of time with. I can predict that much right now. So when the screen goes black like that, it's downloading the algorithms that creates the fractals that you see. That's, you know, mesmerizing. Oh, that went full screen that time, didn't it? All right. See, now I would rather look at that than RGB. I would much rather have that, just very calmly, setting me in a very calm state of mind. It's always different. It doesn't repeat itself. And it's just mesmerizing. That's pretty darn cool if you ask me. All right. That's our build. Thanks you guys again for hanging out with me today. Morton wants me to check my email. Okay, I will do that here before we say goodnight. Rob wants to know if Synology is better than QNAP as a media NAS. I've never used a QNAP NAS. But after evaluating that TerraMaster, I think that TerraMaster is probably better than either Synology or QNAP. Get a better price, a faster network, faster processor, and the ability to go wireless, which you cannot do on Synology. So if it were me, until Synology steps up to the plate and starts living up to their name by giving us more modern processors and 2.5 gig networking, I'm kind of soured on Synology right now. And QNAP, I have never touched a QNAP before, so I don't have any opinion on that. But you might ask in the chat room and see what they have to say. Checking my email. Giadorne sent $100 via Zelle. I'm going to write thank you very much. What else do we have? Morton sends an Amazon gift card of $100. He goes, Carey, here's $100 for the channel. The 200R is running great since the memory upgrade. Right on. Thank you for the update. Thank you for the very generous Amazon gift card. Thank you to both Giadarne and to Mortant. Thanks again to Paul O'Brien and our good friend Peter Laycock, Buster, who sent an Amazon gift card earlier before the show started. And then for our Super Chat contributions, if I can find that screen. Let me go full screen here. Camera 1. Full screen. There I am. And to viewer activity page. So I can say thank you to Chris's Retro Tech channel, who contributed $5 via Super Chat. Thank you to Mark Gaines with a 10-pound contribution in Super Chat, as well as his PayPal contribution. Thank you, Mark, again. Ian Gooch with a 10-pound Super Chat. Thank you, Ian. Peter VZ with €1 and Captain Fandom Nerd and Zach Bischoff. Thanks you guys so much. Zach and Captain Fandom Nerd renewed their memberships here. And Peter VZ with the €1 contribution in Super Chat. You guys are what make this channel possible. You make this content possible. And it's how I'm able to continue doing this because of the generosity of the minority of viewers. So thank you for essentially paying the way for everybody else. If you're not a member and you're not contributing, please know that these videos wouldn't be possible without the generosity of these others in our community. And if you see them in the chat room, please say thank you to them for essentially making it possible for me to make today's video, to buy these components. Nothing was provided by any manufacturer. This was all purchased with money from YouTube one way or another, whether it's from Amazon commissions or whether it's from your super chats or your memberships. I funnel all the money right back into YouTube so we can continue to have a variety of content from system builds, system reviews, still, exposing scammers when that pops up, when that opportunity occurs. And the giveaways, let's not forget, the giveaways get really expensive. And most of the time, once we give a computer away to somebody, we never hear from them again. Out of the 100 or so machines we've given away, about 25 people are still part of the community. The other 75, they just came for the free PC and they left. So that's discouraging, but whatever. Gift is a gift. So hopefully they're enjoying it. And it's because of the contribution of the community that those giveaways were even possible. So can't say thank you enough. Thanks to Camera Girl for today's thumbnail and all the tags and keywords. She's doing all that for us. And thanks to you guys, all the members in blue, all the regular viewers. just for hanging out and being a part of this amazing community that we've created that is unlike any other that I'm aware of on the internet. What we've got here is something special and something priceless. And I'm just trying to do my my part to keep a variety of content from networking and routers to NASs and computers and repairs and upgrades. And if you have something you need repaired or upgraded and you want me to make a video out of it, reach out to me via my email. If you're interested in any of the systems you see me build, reach out to me via email. You can click on the About page on the YouTube channel, and you can see the email address that's a Gmail account for any business transactions, or if you're a member, you should have my personal email address. Either way, you can reach me. You must be in the United States as far as any transactions go because of limitations and shipping and likelihood of damage and import fees, etc. So as long as you're in the USA, I'm sure we can work together and get you a really good deal and a really good system. And at the same time, you're also supporting the channel. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Thanks again. Thanks to Mitch for sending the video update from Vietnam, and we'll look forward to seeing more from him in the near future, I hope. Until next time, bye for now.